Hi, guys, and welcome back to Not Your Mama's Murder in the Headlines, the podcast where we talk about true crime stories that rock the headlines this week. I'm Elisa Bird Hill, and today we are going to be talking about a few shootings and, of course, Florida. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys about this episode. I have sat down to record it multiple times. It has been an extremely long week in my household. Everyone, and I mean everyone from my husband to both of my children and even the dog, were sick this week. And it was the kind of sickness where as soon as they would start feeling better, they would get their appetite back and start showing signs of being themselves, and then they would start feeling bad again. And so there have been entirely too many bodily fluids coming from everyone in this house this week. It was TCAP testing at Desi's school, and she unfortunately had to miss, which has never happened. Thankfully, she was just able to make it up, but, we take education very important. And so being the only healthy one, trying to take care of everyone and keep up with this was exhausting, which I know that's what I signed up for, and I absolutely did. But on top of that, I will say there's a lot of headlines that happened this past week. Usually when I am looking at the headlines and researching, I can get 2 to 3 per day, and that's pushing it. Occasionally maybe a fourth. And I do try to stick to things that are relevant, like, they're actually big crimes in the headlines. They tie to a case that's been in the headlines, things like that. Not just little, the cops were called for a kid playing in the park at night, not things like that. But this week, every single day turned up 6 to 7 headlines. So on top of being busy trying to take care of everyone and everything, every time I sat down to type this all out, it was just so much information all at once. And so then once I finally had it ready to go, because I'll be honest with you, I planned on releasing this today, which is Monday, May 4th. I'm fighting the urge to say May the 4th be with you. But it's going to come out tomorrow instead on Cinco de Mayo. So happy Cinco de Mayo. Which is today when you're hearing this. But every time I've sat down, something has gone wrong. The first time the school called and said I needed to come get Desi because I had sent her back to school thinking she was feeling good. She was not, so I had to go get her. That same night I tried to sit down and record it. It wasn't long before my computer overheated and crashed and didn't save anything. And then the third time I sat down, got a phone call from our health insurance because of all the doctor visits and medications and everything. And so it is now 8 o'clock at night, the night before this comes out. And I very much dislike doing that. I like to have these ready to go, edited at a place where I think that they sound at least somewhat decent to put out for you guys. But, it quickly caught up to me this week. And so here we are. So I guess we will get right into it. And I'm sorry if you can hear the dog running around upstairs, but I'm not stopping again. So a Costco employee was shot and killed in Strongville, Ohio this week. 22-year-old Christian Bryant attempted to enter the store with a large magazine visibly hanging out of his pocket. The employee, named Randy Corrigan, stopped Christian and told him that he couldn't enter with the weapon, that he needed to return it to his vehicle. Instead, Christian pulled the gun and fired one shot at Randy, paused, and then fired more shots one after another. Reports say that Randy suffered 7 to 8 gunshots in total. Randy was a very loved member of his community, and his co-workers actually held a memorial for him outside of the store and laid flowers out for him. Christian is being charged with murder and is currently being held on a $5 million bond. The bond is so high because of the fact that he is a truck driver that was just passing through the area on his route, and so they do consider him a flight risk. He is originally from Fort Worth, Texas. I do think it's really beautiful, and it really says something when your coworkers react to losing you in that way, because I'm sure we all know that it's not always that nice with our coworkers. Keeping with Texas, since that's where he was from, 2 Texas men were sentenced to life in prison for a botched murder for hire plot. These 2 hitmen didn't realize that the intended victim had moved, which I feel like is a huge oversight. They went to the address and shot the resident, not realizing that this man was completely innocent and had no connection to the person who had hired them. This reminds me a whole lot of the Tiger King murder for hire plot. There's just a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers. Also, please don't commit conspiracy to commit murder. But if you do, at the very least, spend the money and get a quality hitman that's going to do their research and do a good job. I think that is definitely one of those situations where you get what you pay for. Moving right along, a man is being charged with DUI, reckless driving, and homicide via vehicle, which I'm going to pause here. I had never heard it explained that way. I always heard vehicular homicide, but every article I read said homicide via vehicle. I'm going to do more research in that. I don't know if it's a law that's different or just the verbiage is different, but that interests me, so I did put it in there in that exact way. Anyways, this comes after a deadly hit and run in Pittsburgh. Police were called to the scene where a 9-year-old boy who was unresponsive after a bike crash was just laying in the road. When police arrived, they realized that the boy, his name was Thurman Wallace, wasn't just unresponsive, but he had unfortunately passed away. Thankfully, they were able to pull nearby CCTV footage to see what happened. On that video, they could see a Chevy pickup truck crash into Thurman, then proceed to just drive away. That vehicle was registered to 53-year-old Thomas Cole. When police went to question Thomas, he smelled strongly of alcohol and was slurring his words, which I do that a lot on this podcast. He told officers he was in the area trying to find his way home after he got lost due to nearby road closures. He said that he didn't remember seeing a child on a bike at all, but at one point he did remember feeling a large bump, and that when he looked in his mirror, all he saw was a pile of rocks, so he kept driving. Thurman, who was 9 years old, loved Roblox, playing Uno, and riding his bike with his siblings and friends. Now, Desi is 9, almost 10, but right now she's 9, and I absolutely could not imagine what this family and community is going through, losing someone so young. You know, it's very unnatural for a parent to bury a child, and so my heart really goes out to them. Almost 2 weeks ago, 2 doctoral students disappeared from Tampa, Florida. This week, one of them was found dead, and it is assumed that the other is dead as well. The body of Zamil Lemon, who was originally from Bangladesh, was found in a black trash bag. His wallet, glasses, and phone were all found in a dumpster, along with a bloody floor mat. His roommate, Haitham, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not even attempting his last name. I'm just going to call him Haitham because I do not want to butcher it and be disrespectful. And while I understand he is a suspected murderer, names are important, especially when they are cultural, and I do not want to mess that up. So, Haitham, the primary suspect, he was the primary suspect almost immediately. He is Zamil's roommate. I can't remember if I said that. After a search of his cell phone, pings tracked his movements, and they realized that he made a long stop by a bridge. That bridge is where the divers were able to locate Zamil's body. Black trash bags matching the one Zamil was found in were found under Haitham's bed, and Haitham has been charged with 2 counts of murder. This is one that I think a lot more information is bound to come out on, so we will definitely be keeping an eye on that one. Now, for a headline that you don't hear very often, but a gunman in Greece has been arrested following a mass shooting. The shooting left 5 people injured. The exact motive is unknown, but due to the location of the shooting, paperwork that was left behind with the shotgun, and his mental stability, it does appear that he was angry about a court decision, likely related to his mental health and well-being. The shooter was arrested at a hotel approximately 124 miles away from Athens, and a second weapon was found with him. It is unclear if he had plans to commit another shooting or attempt to die by suicide, or if he had the second firearm just for protection. That one surprised me. It really is not often that we hear of mass shootings outside of the U.S. A Michigan inmate has died after falling off of a higher level balcony at his correctional facility. This is suspicious because it is the 3rd instance of this happening this week. So I guess my headline should read 3 inmates, although only one of them died. The first 2 inmates to go over the balcony survived with minor injuries. The occurrences are under investigation because this has happened before at the same prison last April. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it does feel eerie. I should mention these headlines are from April. Like I said, I tried to record early, it just didn't work out. So it has been 1 year since this has happened before at the same prison, which is concerning. A Texas man with a known history of domestic violence is being charged with murder after he strangled his girlfriend, Ashanti, who was 8 months pregnant with their first child. He then FaceTimed a friend and showed her Ashanti's body, then made a run for Louisiana, where he was easily tracked because he was using Ashanti's credit card to pay for things. He is being held without bond. And I think it is important to note that Ashanti had this man locked up for hurting her before, and he was still supposed to be in jail. He was only released due to overpopulation. And I've said this once in personal life, obviously not on the podcast yet, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it here. Do not release the violent offenders. The weed smokers, sure. The financial crimes, sure. Leave the violent people and the pedophiles where they belong. It keeps our streets safe. Moving on. A Montana mother was arrested and charged with the death of her 5-year-old son. Suspiciously, those are the only details that have been released. So I'll be watching this one closely. I really want to know what her motive for killing him was. I kept this one in here because it felt important for some reason. The fact that no details have been released whatsoever other than that makes me ask questions. A lot of questions. So, this one is heavy, guys. The sentencing in the case of Athena Strand continues this week. If you don't know, this is the case of the little girl. I don't know what I just said. This is the case of the little girl who was abducted and murdered by the FedEx driver, Tanner Horner. Tanner unexpectedly pleaded guilty right before the trial was set to begin, so the jury is only hearing details to decide what his punishment will look like. The options are life without parole or death, which some people would say are the same sentence. They are not, for a lot of reasons, but now, we haven't had a chance to discuss my stance on the death penalty on the podcast yet, and I won't go into it now. But if any case fits qualifying for the death penalty, I do think it is this one. We literally caught him on video and audio committing rape and murder of a child. You can hear his victim crying and saying ouch as he forcibly penetrates her. His semen was found inside of Athena, not on her, inside of her. He immediately started trying to cover up the crime by calling his boss and asking for the same truck the following day, explaining away the smell that would be in it. So, I think it absolutely fits the requirements. I also have a hot take about this case. Please understand what a hot take is, okay? It is an unpopular opinion. I am not accusing anyone of anything. Anything I say is allegedly. It is my opinion. It is what I think. Call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever you want. But I actually think that this likely was not his first time. At the very least, I will say that he has probably likely molested other children. And if you are watching the trial yourself, I do not mean those 16-year-old girls. Good on them for coming up. But I mean younger children and more severe. Not that you can compare any type of being taken advantage of. But I think that he has done something similar to this before, and at the most, I think there could actually be other murders by him that it has just not been connected or linked to him because it did not happen on video. He was too calm, and he clearly had urges that he gave into. He took her, knowing what he was going to do to her, knowing there was a camera there. He knew he was going to get caught, but it was an impulse. He couldn't help but give in. And I'm sorry if you hear me hitting my desk, but this one gets me fired up. I find it hard to believe that he had successfully repressed those feelings for children for years. And then the first time he gives in, it goes straight to rape and murder. That's not typically, now there are outliers, but that is not typically how it works. You usually build up to that. So I'm just not buying it. I have nothing nice to say about his defense team trying to blame it on him being autistic. Bryan Kohberger tried and failed at that too. Developmental disabilities do not make you murderers. You are just evil. I'm going to let that go, because if not, I am going to be very upset. Moving on. An 82-year-old Florida man is being charged with first-degree murder after his wife's dead body was found with a hamper nearby. The husband also had injuries that looked like a failed attempt at his own life. Evidence showed that the couple had made a suicide pact. I don't know what that proof is, but that's what they say. I'm sorry, but if that's the truth, then I don't think the wife would want the husband to be charged for her murder. I understand the law, but imagine being 82 and 84 and watching the world for so long and seeing where it is now and just being ready to go meet your maker. This actually reminds me a lot of the Dr. Death case that I mentioned briefly on Friday's episode. In November of 1991, Cindy Warner was abducted from her sister's home in California, leaving behind all of her belongings and her 11-month-old daughter. Her body was found 3 weeks later, showing signs that she had been held captive for weeks before being murdered and dumped. Authorities had a suspect early on, but couldn't find him until this week. 64-year-old James Lawhead was found via facial recognition living in Arizona under another name. He was charged with kidnapping, rape, and murder, and his sister was also charged with accessory to murder. James had already been convicted of sex crimes prior to Cindy's abduction, but had been released. Police are looking into his possible involvement with other cases as well. I am so sorry if you just heard the door open. Desi Girl is the most mature and well-behaved child. I've said so many times that if I could have 10 of her, I would have 10 more kids. It is 8:24 and she was just coming to tell me goodnight because she is going up to her room to read before she settles down for her bedtime at 9 o'clock, because that's just the kind of kid she is. So even though I had asked her not to come down here, she didn't want to go to bed without telling me goodnight. So that's what that was. So sorry if the mic picked that up. And now you can hear her walking upstairs. I'm going to try and wrap this up so I can get up and tell her goodnight. Just a few more here. Nicole Rodriguez is a teacher in Florida. A whole lot of Florida today, as you can tell by the headline. But Nicole Rodriguez is of Florida. Wow. Okay, let me try again. Sorry, she got me all flustered. Nicole Rodriguez is a teacher in Florida, not a Florida, who was arrested for physically abusing her 8-year-old autistic student. Pretty great that I just talked about Desi, because this gives me a chance to talk about Weston. As the mother of a son with autism, this is my greatest fear. Weston can be more difficult. I just bragged on Desi, and I don't mean to make it sound like Weston is not just as amazing, because he is, just in other ways. He does have some behavioral challenges and things like that. He is nonverbal, so his only form of communication is to cry or scream. He can't let anybody know when he's hurting or not feeling well or overstimulated, or the noise is just too loud, or his sock doesn't feel right, or whatever it may be. Sending him to school, making the decision to send him to school was incredibly hard, considering all the things I just mentioned. I can't imagine how this mother must be feeling. It is so hard. It's literally, and any parent will understand, it is like having a piece of your heart outside of your body. Thankfully for the mother in this case, the abuse was caught on CCTV footage at multiple different times. It's reported that Nicole would restrain the child's hands behind his back and then push his face onto the desk or the floor. She would also aggressively hold his shoulders and jerk him around. When he attempted to stand, she could be seen mounting him and forcing his face into the corner. Thankfully, his mother noticed finger-shaped bruises, scratches, and even a puncture wound on her child and reported it immediately. Nicole is being charged with child abuse. Her defense is that the child was acting out and she was attempting to de-escalate. That is not how you de-escalate, especially a child who may be overwhelmed by physical touch. And second of all, even if the child was acting out in the worst way, that's just not how you handle it. A special needs teacher should know that. I hope she is found guilty and that she is sentenced to the fullest extent of the law. Every child, not just special needs children, but especially special needs children, deserve to have a safe place to learn. Us parents should not have to worry about sending our children to a place to get an education. If you do not like children, don't work with them. It is pretty simple, especially considering all the schooling and the poor pay. Florida again, a Florida firefighter has been arrested after assaulting a patient on a rescue call. Guys, this one had me asking questions when I first read it. This man had been a firefighter for 11 years. On the date of the incident, rescue services were sent to a residence where they met a 65-year-old victim who at the time was in a wheelchair. He was eventually loaded into the stretcher to be evaluated. At the point he was loaded into the ambulance with no cameras, the firefighter reportedly slammed his head into the stretcher over and over for over 30 seconds and also used his fingers to push into his eyeballs. 2 other firefighters were outside the ambulance, saw what happened, and reported it. They were praised during a press conference where it was announced that the man who committed the crime had been suspended with pay. He is being charged with 2 counts of battery to a person over the age of 65. No motive, no reason why he did this, not sure if there's a connection to him, nothing. That is all the information. I will say, those 2 firefighters that reported him, rather than just standing by and watching it happen, good men, and they need more than just being recognized at a press conference. Home state here, a Tennessee mom is heading to trial after meeting with a hitman in a parking lot and asking him to, quote, put her ex-husband underground. She also requested, quote, a slow death. What she didn't know is that this hitman was an undercover TBI agent. The motive? She wanted access to her daughter's trust fund that would have been left to her upon her father's death. She was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and now her daughter has lost her mom. And I assume the dad probably got custody. So she did quite the opposite of what her goal was there. I always say that in these cases where people are like, I'll kill for my child, I'll kill for my child. And I understand the sentiment to do that. And I probably would too. But these people who kill their exes or their spouses or whatever, you're making your child lose both parents. Because you're gonna get caught. Even if it's not an underground TBI agent, undercover. Even if you do it yourself, you're gonna get caught. Maybe not as soon as it happens, but eventually you're gonna get caught. And so that child is going to have a dead parent and a parent in jail. And that is not how any child should have to live their lives. So while, yes, I understand the sentiment of I'll kill for my kid, I also understand letting, the justice system do what it needs to do. Because if not, you're going to make the situation worse. Almost always. 57-year-old Coco Miller was sentenced to 26 months in prison, followed by 3 years probation due to her dogs mauling a 6-year-old boy to death. Coco was babysitting this boy when the attack happened. They were Great Dane Mastiff mixes, both with a history of being aggressive. Both dogs were euthanized the same day as the attack. Now, if you did not listen to the introduction episode of this podcast, you know that for my regular job, my day job, this is just my passion project here, that childcare is what I do, and I do it in my home. I do run a in-home daycare, and so having children around animals, even the most predictable animals, let's say they didn't have a history of being aggressive, you still have to keep a close eye. Not every child has learned how to behave around a child. And even if a dog is well behaved, they can change. They can snap. It happens. People who have loved and owned their dog for years will be attacked by their own dog. It's something you always have to keep an eye on. So the fact that she had this child around dogs that she knew was aggressive, and she didn't keep them kenneled or whatever it takes to make sure this doesn't happen, is absurd. And I actually think that she should be serving more time in prison than 26 months. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood though. I didn't realize how worked up this case had me. For the next one, we're bouncing back to Texas, and this one is a little more sad than angry. A Texas mother is being charged with abuse of a corpse after she dug up the remains of her infant and brought them home with her. Her child had died during childbirth back in February of this year. And I'm not saying what she did is right, but I'm saying I get it. Maybe cremation would have been a better option so that she could still feel like her daughter was nearby. I don't know what the answer is here, because I know that you cannot just go dig up a grave, but it is her daughter's grave, and I can't imagine what she must have been going through to get to the point where that is what she wanted to do just to have her baby near her, and my heart seriously goes out for her. Roxanne Sharp was 16 when she was raped and murdered. Then her case went unsolved for 45 years. Despite confession killer Henry Lucas trying to take credit for it, it went nowhere. This year, new progress was made in the case, all thanks to a podcast called Who Killed Roxanne? And actually, that's all I'm going to say about it, because I want you to go and check out that podcast. It's 8 episodes. It's a good little deep dive. It'll give you all the information. I think it's amazing that we are in this reality where podcasts and documentaries and things like that are starting to investigate and reopen and even solve these cold cases, bringing justice to families that have been waiting on it for years and years. I love that. And so yeah, go give that podcast a listen. For our last case tonight, and this one is a doozy as well, 8 children ages 3 to 11 were killed, and 2 women were injured after a mass shooting in Louisiana. Honestly, Louisiana's been coming up a lot lately after my trip. Anyways, the shooter was killed by police after hijacking someone at gunpoint. The shooting started as a domestic dispute and quickly got out of hand. The shooter first shot woman A, who is either his wife or his girlfriend, it's unclear, then fled to a nearby house and shot woman B, who is either his wife or his girlfriend, whichever one the first one wasn't, and the 8 children, most of which were shot in the head in bed. One teenager was shot and killed on the roof while trying to flee. Another was on the roof and survived the shooting, but did get injuries from falling off. 7 of the 8 children were the shooter's kids, and 1 was a cousin. And I'm just quickly going to name the children that unfortunately lost their lives. Jayla, age 3, Shayla, age 5, Kayla, age 6, Layla, age 7, Markaden, age 10, Sarah, age 11, Kadarian, age 6, and Braylon, age 5. And I'm so sorry I said that was the last one, but just one more, since it was all in the headlines. But, so last but not least, there was another assassination attempt on President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Allegedly, maybe. And that's quite literally all I have to say about that. Thank you guys for being here and for listening to me, I guess, complain about life a little bit. I didn't intend for it to come off that way. It's just been a lot this week, and it's more so that I enjoy doing this, and this week it kind of felt like a little bit of a job, and I don't like that. I want to keep enjoying it. And then I felt really bummed out that I didn't get to record it in advance, because what I really like to do is record it, listen to it. If I've made mistakes, I'll try to cut those out if they're awful or I just sound terrible. Sometimes I even record twice, a little behind the scenes for you guys, because I just think I can do a better job for you guys. So, I don't know. This week, it was all just heavy. There was a lot of headlines. There was a lot going on in my house. I couldn't get it recorded for you guys, and so I hate how last minute this is going to be. I'm not even going to have a chance to listen to it or edit it. It's just going to have to go out as it is, and hopefully this never happens again. Hopefully no more germs as we're coming into the end of the school year here. Hopefully I can always record in advance. I don't know. I just appreciate you guys being here and listening. Thank you so much. See you Friday.